Good afternoon and good evening, wherever in the world you are, welcome. My name is Ece Hancı, and I'll be your host during today's webinar. I'm conscious there are some folks on the line today who are new to Symphony, so just to give you a brief introduction on us. We started our company as a messaging platform built specifically for financial services to solve data security and compliance challenges and to enable real-time cross-company communication. In our next chapter of evolution, which we call Volume 2, we're focused on building on this platform to develop a standard connective communication layer that brings all of the modular pieces of our industry together, so we can liquefy some of the most complex and time-sensitive workflows in financial services. I'm pleased to be joined today by some of the members of the Symphony community who have been at the forefront of innovation on our platform. We have from Unqork, Kevin Parvin and Matthew Linakis, and from Saphyre, Max Lem and Carlos Ruiz. Welcome, guys. Our session today is actually the second one of our Innovators Showcase Series, where each one is focusing on a different industry theme. Today, we will be talking about client onboarding and taking a look at some of the community-built solutions that streamline the process for the entire ecosystem in which we all operate. There are a few reasons why we wanted to focus on client onboarding today. First of all, we hear from our customers consistently that the mid to back office teams are vastly underserved by technology solutions. So we wanted to bring forward some of the work that Symphony community is doing, focusing on this audience. We also know that client onboarding is often an inefficient mix of disconnected systems, disparate workflows, and manual steps, with an over-reliance on email-based workflows. And finally, many of our clients tell us that they're laser-focused on enhancing their clients' experience, particularly for the onboarding stage. This is, after all, the first impression our clients get on the service they signed up for. So Symphony, working with partners like Saphyre and Unqork, we're creating standardized and automated workflows that demonstrate the quality of service in the early days of a relationship between financial services firms. So during the next 40 minutes, we will see demonstrations from Saphyre and Unqork, as well as hearing about their development process and future plans. Now, we want this to be an interactive session, so please do take advantage of the Q&A box, which is on the bottom left of your module. Now, to kick it off, I want to welcome Kevin and Matthew from Uncork. You guys ready to take over the show?
We're ready.
Absolutely.
All right, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ete. So, hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Parvin. I'm a client partner here at Uncork, focused on financial services. And with me, I have Matthew Linakis, who's a client director. And among a lot of other areas, we're both focused very much on client lifecycle, client onboarding, for really all the kind of reasons that Ete mentioned. It's a very common use case that we see across our client base. So very happy to be here with everybody today, share our views and capabilities on institutional onboarding. We are going to spend most of the time on the demo in terms of kind of our asset and institutional onboarding, as well as our integration with Symphony. But really first, just want to kind of lay the foundation of what Uncork is and what really allows us within the platform to tackle some of the key challenges in this space. So easiest way to think about Uncork is it's a software development platform that allows companies to build applications without using any code whatsoever. So a completely visual way of building languages. Basically, we've abstracted code into about 40 or 50 different components, workflow designers, integration layers that are done through a graphical interface. So again, totally no code, totally visual. And clients are using our platform to really build applications, complex enterprise-grade applications across institutional onboarding, retail onboarding, AML, KYC processes, client portals, and a whole host of kind of operational risk processes as well. We're kind of well-funded. Biggest investors are Google, Goldman, and BlackRock. From an architecture perspective, we are a cloud-native, fully SaaS-based solution, agnostic in terms of what cloud provider our clients use. But we always apply kind of single-tenant concept. We never share data across tenants, and we never have access to production data at Uncork. Very quickly, from a market penetration perspective, we have over 90 clients now across our 4 verticals, being kind of FS, insurance, public sector, and healthcare. And then specifically within FS, we've grown very aggressively within wealth and asset management, banking, capital markets, have been kind of our key growth areas. And then last piece on this slide is really from our community of folks that are certified on building on Unqork. So that 10,000 number, that obviously includes kind of our employees, but it also includes our kind of large number, our large network of SI partners. So the likes of KPMG, EY, Chinua, but it also includes our employees that are increasingly building this muscle internally to build applications on Unqork or maintain applications with Unqork.
Kevin, quick question. I see that you have a wide breadth of sectors that are listed on the bottom alongside financial services. I'm particularly interested to understand a little bit more about the asset owners, so the insurance, the public sector space. Can you tell us a little bit more about the common Unqork capabilities that really drive demand across these sectors?
Sure. Yeah, I think actually going to the next slide will do a good job, and I'll kind of touch on what are some of the common areas across different industries, because we do see kind of the common challenges across those as well. So there's really kind of four key pillars to the platform. So again, it is a totally no-code development platform, which basically means that we don't have any of the challenges that come with maintaining a legacy code base. It also means all of our clients are on the same version of Unqork because we can kind of roll out upgrades without any complexity of custom code. The second is again, a totally unified platform to create complex applications, including the cloud-hosted infrastructure. So it really includes kind of everything to build the UI UX to the middleware, which means kind of the integrations of business logic, calculations, data transformations, workflow, all the way to the backend database, which is a NoSQL MongoDB. So typically these are different capabilities. They have to be stitched together, whereas with Unqork, they're kind of in one box. So actually to your question, as Matthew will show, like this pillar is really what enables us to kind of solve some of the key challenges, whether they're in kind of institutional onboarding or kind of across different sectors. So really kind of a few of those are to kind of mention are the integration layer, really common challenge across industries, kind of getting information into and out of a process. We're able to kind of use that no-code integration layer to easily integrate with internal systems, external systems, to really power that entire process. And we could also integrate with middle and back office systems so that any manual processing is cut out of the process as well. The second is really dynamic workflows, right? So whether you're talking kind of financial services or insurance, one of the pain points is that typically workflows are pretty static in terms of, what a client has to go through or what a internal party has to go through. So we're really able to build kind of very intelligent, reflexive workflows. So for example, in client onboarding, as we're going to show, we take things into account like client jurisdiction, the product attributes that they want to trade, booking entities, and that really kind of customizes the onboarding workflow from an AML KYC perspective, from a due diligence perspective. So really kind of reflexive, intelligent workflows. The third is UI UX, so really building kind of custom UI UX. Obviously, a very huge focus on kind of building digital first experiences for customers, so we can really create kind of pixel perfect client portals and client experiences. And last but not least is really transparency. So regardless of what industry you're talking about, one of the pain points is not knowing where a process is, where the bottlenecks are, how SLAs are being met or whether they're not being met. So because Unqork is an event-based architecture and platform, we can really create kind of very intuitive internal dashboards or plug into any kind of BI tool that's used today to really provide that kind of real-time view in terms of where the process is, where SLAs are being breached or kind of getting close to being breached.
Kevin, you also mentioned the no code there a number of times actually in your introductions. So are you saying that solutions like Unqork is really helping to bridge the gap between those individuals that don't come from a coding background or have this sort of expertise?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned kind of in the beginning, so we've fully abstracted code, so we actually don't allow code on the platform. While there's definitely still a learning curve on Unqork, it's not that anybody can come in and build a complex application using Unqork without training whatsoever. But what it does mean is that, people don't need to have kind of Java or C++ knowledge or any kind of coding language to begin building on Unqork, right? So it really opens up the possibilities in the funnel in terms of kind of who can contribute to app dev. And we have a whole kind of range of enablement and training programs to really facilitate that, as well as kind of SDLC tools to kind of still ensure governance, which is really, really important for technology as well. So just to round out this slide, and then I'm going to hand it over to Matthew for the demo. So the third pillar is really around kind of reusability and scalability. So as you build it on Unqork, you can kind of save components of applications as templates or snippets, so you can reuse them over and over again. Really drives kind of velocity and consistency in app dev. And then we also have a marketplace of everything from integration to kind of industry-specific accelerators to really kind of add to that acceleration of development. Again, very powerful in institutional onboarding to really kind of accelerate that digital transformation around onboarding. And then last but definitely not least is enterprise grade. So everything from very strong kind of RBAC functionality, very robust SDLC and governance tools. We're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. We can build kind of WORM compliant applications. Again, so really we understand how important those are to our clients. So it's really been built into kind of the core of the platform. So all those allow us to kind of build applications far quicker, far kind of with a lower total cost of ownership, and really applications that are far more adaptable and intuitive. That can kind of be iterated on quite quickly. So with that, why don't we kind of jump right into our institutional onboarding accelerator and kind of show you some of what we've been able to build on the platform.
Let's do it.
Awesome. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and what you're going to see first is just for the purpose of the demo, our onboarding dashboard. Now, the dashboard here has a lot of capabilities that you would expect in most other dashboarding tools. If you're familiar with a lot of enterprise technology, things like ClickView and Tableau, it's all real-time reporting. So, of course, the first pain point that we were talking about earlier, that understanding where a case is in the workflow. Nothing here is based on static batch processing unless you have an internal system that requires so. Everything in Unqork is enabled for real-time reporting. Moreover, we're also enable the kind of interactivity that you would have with other BI tools, such as being able to click into a part of a graph and being able to filter and drill down into your submission, your submissions, your cases, to be able to investigate further if something is delayed, if something is on track, and where possible bottlenecks are in your workflow. Another great thing about Unqork is, and where we really show our strength in the onboarding process, is our ability to handle, of course, complex workflows. Now, we can handle workflows, as you would imagine, in sort of a linear format of step A followed by step B and step C. But if I go in here and I click, say, into this particular onboarding case, you could see that when I click into the status, you'll see that a couple of steps here in the workflow are complete, some in the middle are in process, some are not started, but you see that last step is complete. And what we want to be able to demonstrate here is our ability to handle not only very basic workflow, but without writing a new line of code, being able to design, execute, and orchestrate complex concurrent workflows, parallel processes. And of course, nothing here is simply a screen that everyone can access. Because we are enterprise grade, we are able to also enable rules-based access controls. So as you have tax and compliance and credit and members of your due diligence teams reviewing these screens, one thing that we will demonstrate as we progress through some of these screens in this particular demo is you'll see that those rules-based access controls in effect as I click through. So let's go ahead here and create a new request. So if I'm onboarding a new relationship, now we can onboard a new relationship. We can also onboard an existing relationship to a new product, or maybe an existing relationship from a parent entity into sub-entities. A strength that we also have in Uncork that we've built out because of our relationships and because of our feedback from our clients is the ability to have that holistic view across a relationship across a parent entity and its subsidiaries that we may have. But for the purposes here, let's just assume that we're going to be onboarding a new relationship. In this case, let's say I want to onboard an entity such as Amazon.com. I could go ahead and onboard that relationship. And what you'll see is as I'm clicking through here, another key point that Kevin was bringing up earlier, our ability to integrate very easily with live data. In this case, you'll see the filtering down as I type through in this dropdown is a live integration with the global legal entity identifier database. So when I'm actually typing in an entity name, I'm on the screen in real time, validating that entity information. And once I select it, I'm actually able to validate some of that basic metadata entity information, such as legal entity identifier, the address, the entity name, and so on. And from here, I could actually initiate the request and begin the onboarding workflow. But of course, in our relationship with Symphony, we didn't want to just stop there. What we wanted to be able to do is incorporate that omni-channel communication where, yes, we may actually be able to bring in like a chat room from a Symphony window in our UI, but more importantly, we want to be able to create workflows directly from applications that the front office and sales users would be most familiar with. In this case, we assume that those people are not necessarily going into a back office system such as an onboarding workflow every day. whereas they may actually be using their Symphony chat window on a near daily or daily basis. So what you'll see here is I'm in a web browser version of a Symphony window. What I could actually do is I'm going to activate an Unqork bot, which is a bot that we actually created for the purpose of this demo. And I'm going to go ahead and activate it and instruct it to begin the onboarding process of an entity. Once I do that, we activate a search functionality similar to what I was demonstrating earlier in our UI. Here I can go ahead, search for Amazon.com, and searching in the Global Legal Entity Identifier database, I could go ahead and validate the entity that I want by selecting it from this dropdown that results from the Symphony bot, submit it, and when I hit submit, I'm actually initiating a workflow in Unqork and then having Unqork provide back a deep link. So that way I could go ahead and click in here. Now the benefit here is not just the ability to initiate a workflow from a familiar platform, but also the ability to bring in other people to the chat. So in this case, I could create a new chat room with people from tax, from compliance, from operations, people that I know will be involved in the onboarding process overall, and be able to notify them in real time of the status of this particular case. So let me go ahead and click into this particular case that we're onboarding for Amazon. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring me into the application as if I was initiating the workflow directly from the UI that you saw earlier. Now, another great thing, another pain point that we usually saw with our customers is when you are onboarding an institution, a lot of the information that our clients need is usually manually entered, or worse yet, it is based on batch uploads, batch updates from other systems that may not necessarily be up to date. So here we're demonstrating a live integration with Salesforce, where we're actually pulling in the information from Salesforce, from Glyph, as we were showing earlier. But of course, without writing any line of code, we're actually able to develop a rich user interface with things such as required fields, like you're seeing here with this dropdown, where I could say that this is a publicly traded entity, identifying an address as a principal place of business or a local address. But of course, being able, if I scroll back to the top here, the real-time status of each of these steps. So in this case, we could, as I said earlier, we could handle concurrent and parallel step workflow, but we're also able to validate when we could actually activate that. So in this case, the first two steps are what is required before we proceed anywhere further down the workflow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, fast forward here, go into the next screen for products and services selection. And of course, we have the data validation for not only the individual pieces of data, but also for arrays. So in this case, what I can actually do is not allow the user to proceed until we actually select a booking entity. And now the booking entity can be somewhere in the United States or not in the United States, and we could, of course, then handle downstream changes to the workflow, changes in the path, depending on certain criteria. In this case, if the booking entity is somewhere outside the United States, it may require additional due diligence versus something within the United States would not require so. And of course, we could also then, based on our integration with Salesforce, be able to pull additional products that this client may be eligible for. In this case, they may be also eligible for deposits and auto foreign exchange, where we may actually want to present that to the client as additional products that we may offer, or we may want to deselect it. And for the purposes of this demo, we're going to include both of them. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm quickly going to submit for ops review. So that's the front office user, the client relationship manager's view of this particular app. But as I said, we are completely roles-based access enabled. So if I go into the operations users dashboard and I click into this particular case, what you'll see is now I'm logged in as a member of the operations team, and I see a very similar screen. In fact, it should be the same exact screen that the front office user was seeing earlier, albeit with additional fields. In this case, we have another example of how we enable more efficient data processing for front office users. Rather than having them have to manually enrich this application, we can also enable the data integrations that we were showing earlier, but also enable things like OCR. In this case, I have an OFAC report that I just uploaded, and having that autofill, extract the information from a document and have it autofill some of this information in the application. Now, as a member of the operations team, then I go into the product selection page. Again, very similar screen. However, I do not see the button here to go ahead and hand over to operations. Given that I'm the operations team, we actually have the ability to actually initiate the outreach with the customer. So I, as the operations person, can then go in, initiate the outreach, preview the email that the client is then going to be sent, and actually send that outreach directly from the application. So we don't necessarily need to have manual tracking of interactions with a customer that you may actually be handling in a third-party system or in Outlook or whatever email service that you use. We can enable that directly from the application, of course, have it be completely auditable. In this case, I just got the email welcoming me to my portal. And assuming now that I'm the client, I could go in through this email, enter my portal, and it's a dedicated portal that you can also, in your production and our clients' production applications, be able to, authenticate through any means that you may have, whether it be multi-factor authentication, being able to provision passwords and usernames manually into the system. But importantly enough, what we want to demonstrate here is we want to get rid of the ability, we want to get rid of the need for our customers to have their clients have to send documents and enrich the application via email, possibly exposing additional data security issues. Rather, we want to be able to provide a dedicated portal and provide that white glove service where a customer can go in, and if they see something wrong with their entity classification or their basic information such as address, they could go in and edit this information. For the purposes of KYC AML, they may want to go ahead and provide documentation directly in the application rather than sending it via email and having that back and forth. Further down this demo, we also have the ability to negotiate contracts directly in the application rather than having to go into, say, Microsoft Word or whatever data processing document processor that you may have, being able to handle the entire workflow end to end in Unqork.
And when all of this workflow is happening, does the Symphony chat room sort of keep getting notifications so that everyone who's touching this workflow is aware of all the updates and the documents that are being uploaded? Absolutely.
So actually, if I go back into the Symphony chat window, what you'll see is that we actually have the Unqork bot automatically notifying every member of this chat room that the status has updated for this particular case. So absolutely, and that was the point that we were bringing up earlier, where you can create a chat room where you incorporate people from tax, from operations, from compliance, anyone who's actually should be involved in the onboarding process for a particular client, have them automatically notified in real time rather than having the front office user or client relationship manager have to manually corral the troops every time something needs to be done.
Great. I do see a question from the audience that I'll just maybe sort of read here for everyone. How long is the typical build time for a typical project? And is it possible to do a pilot? How does it work? And by the way, that's just a reminder to keep posting your questions, and we'll try to cover them as much as possible during the next half an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. So what typically, because Unqork, we're a no-code platform. So what the benefit of that is that it's very quick turnarounds to ideate and iterate through different through different concepts. So typically, our build process will last in sprints between 8 to 12 weeks, where you can develop a minimum viable product where after which point you'll have something actually in production in that short a period of time. Now, after that point, you can then iterate and add on to the process. But within 8 to 12 weeks, you can have something typically for a rather standard process such as onboarding a customer, counterparty, or client that can be enabled in a relatively short order.
Great.
Yep. And happy to answer any other questions from the audience also.
Here's another one. There are lots of organizations that have developers in-house, and the question is asking, when would you recommend using Unqork versus building stuff internally? I think this is applicable for a lot of the financial services firms.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we actually intend is not for our clients to be reliant on Unqork to build their applications for them. Rather, because Unqork, what we provide as Unqork is simply a platform to build their software on. And we're not saying that any of our clients have to make that decision between building on Unqork or building internally. Rather, we would like our clients to build on their own software on their own using Unqork and realize that those benefits of building something quicker, faster, more efficiently on Unqork.
Okay, and I guess here's a question. Here's a question to add on to that. If their clients are choosing to use Unqork, in the event that they want to build something, the question is asking, there are no-code case management platforms in the market. What is the unique selling point for Unqork?
Yeah, the unique selling point of Unqork is that we are the enterprise grade no-code platform. So there's a lot of low-code providers out there. There's a lot of people who claim they're no-code, but in reality, anything beyond very simple use cases require scripting, sometimes in their own proprietary language, scripting language that needs to be learned by the user. Again, because Unqork, we don't actually allow you to inject any code onto the platform. We actually outsource all of that code. We allow our clients to outsource code management to Unqork. And rather, everything that our clients then use Unqork for is simply to maintain the rules logic. And that is the key differentiator there, that we actually don't, we are the enterprise grade no-code platform that is used by public sector, financial, insurance, and healthcare sectors.
That's a big one. And then also kind of one of the things that's important is also anything from like a UI UX perspective. So if you think about kind of, digital portals, client portals, that's another key differentiation point across some of the other low-code providers.
Great. Okay, I'd like to switch gears now and move over to the next guest speakers from Saphyre. And we'll get back to the questions afterwards in the end of the webinar. So Max and Carlos, are you guys still there? And are you ready to take over the show?
We are. Thank you very much for having us here today. Really interesting presentation from Uncork there. Quick reminder, I'm Max Lamb and I run the EMEA team at Saphyre. And Carlos is based in Florida, where it's considerably warmer than it is here in London. And he'll be driving the product demonstration when we get to it. So just a few words to establish who we are, and then we'll plunge straight into the demonstration. We have JP Morgan, Bank of New York, BlackRock as users on the platform. And I say this not to boast that we have big clients, but I say it because we've demonstrated value to them. And I hope that we can demonstrate value to you in the audience today as well on the same grounds. And we have technological partnerships with a number of people as well. And Symphony, of course, is one of them, and that's why we're here today. So what is Saphyre? We provide a cloud-hosted platform which connects data and workflows between market participants, mostly related to accounts. And in doing so, we provide the central reference database of client information. It's kind of something that's not been done before. And people sometimes look a bit puzzled. It's kind of well, what is this? Is it interesting? Is it relevant to me? And I'm guessing just before we do the demonstration, I'll try to convince you all of the relevance. 2 points, 2 long points, I warn you. The first is there's a lot of time wasted fixing issues with trades. And when we deep dive into what caused the problem, the #1 culprit is not being synchronized on some fairly basic stuff. So examples would be a custody account where the SSIs have changed, so the trade doesn't settle. Or the AML status on an account, maybe an out-of-date W8 or an out-of-date W9 is causing issues. Or sometimes brokers, it's totally usual for brokers, if it were a clearing account, to maybe mark it dormant after 12 months of not being traded. And this then causes problems. Well, it's interesting, but why should you care about that? And I think there's 3 things about this. First is missed trading opportunities. I lose count of the number of times that teams that work for me have been phoned up by the dealing desk saying, can I trade in India? Can I trade in Portugal? At which point the operations people phone up the custodian phones up the sub-custodian. And if that sub-custodian's in a different time zone, you sometimes get the answer back the next day. And it's not a happy portfolio manager, trader, or trader, who finds out. And it's wasteful. I was just talking about phone calls there and emails and old-fashioned ways of doing things. And if you were to go and speak with your dealing desk or your middle office or operational setup team, you would find they spend a lot of time sorting out issues like this in a very manual way. And then there's a big one sitting in the background, of course, which is the industry is moving towards quicker settlement. And it's really hard to do quicker settlement if you've got trades that are maybe not necessarily failing, but you're running around trying to sort out the problems with them. So that's kind of the first point. And the second point, which I think is probably almost more powerful in a way, is that I was just saying people exchange information on emails, they exchange them on PDFs, they exchange them on spreadsheets. It's slow, it's error prone, it's labor intensive. People are sitting away typing. And when they type in the SSIs wrong, or they type in the account number wrong, and it causes problems further down the road. It also lacks visibility. Because you end up keeping track of things in spreadsheets or in multiple systems. And then when you do need to investigate something, it's not just go to one team and one database to find the answer. You're going to multiple teams and multiple databases because there is no single reference point where you can pull out the information about your accounts. So, and there's one more, I think, big thing, for the money people in the room, which is if you're a buy side and you're onboarding slowly, and if it takes you 12 weeks to onboard something instead of 8 weeks to onboard something, then you're leaving that revenue, the new ANNR, in the pipeline for 12 weeks. And if you could onboard in 8 weeks, then you could move it to your revenue line. So that's kind of the buy-side perspective. It's even worse for brokers, I'd say. Because for a broker, if they miss out on day one trading, my experience is that what then happens is the onboarding team, the fund manager, move on. They onboard the next client. And sometimes they never even get back to onboarding the broker comes out. So brokers there on day one quite often just mess out on a whole load of trading. So speed of a broker is imperative. And what we are going to show you today is that Saphyre really helps out with all of those problems. And we do it, we think, in a clever way. We have 68 patents relating to what we do here. So if it's okay with you, actually, I'll just move straight into the demonstration.
Absolutely. Let's move to the demo. But just a quick question for you, Max. You touched on a very interesting point there about buy sides missing on revenue opportunities. I think that's very relevant. You come from a buy side. You worked in asset management for many years previously, and that's an increasingly growing sector for us at Symphony. Can you perhaps tell us a little bit more about the particular departments, teams that the Symphony Saphyre integration is very much valid for and helps resolve some of the challenges so that people can sort of resonate with that?
Yeah, of course. I think it just is of interest to multiple people, oddly. So firstly, we have the finance director, the reasons I was just saying. Well, why not have an uplift in revenue and why not have a decrease in costs or an increase in efficiency? So finance directors like it. Client-facing people like it because when you're told that your clients can go down the road and not only have a better client experience, but a quicker client experience, well, they want it from a competitive point of view. Operations people, they're keen because they spent a lot of time sorting out the queries that I was just talking about. And then the onboarding team, they're kind of really at the coalface of this. They're the people who are setting up clients and setting up operations. So it's kind of all of those people. And then layered over the top, you have the dealers and the portfolio managers who are often the people making those internal phone calls, internal Symphony messages back to the operations team saying, well, what's the status on this account? Why is this fund not working and all that stuff? So it's kind of, it's a bit of everyone, which makes my life easy and difficult. Should we move on to the demonstration?
We have a look at the demo.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So just wait for the screen share to kick in here. Lovely, thank you. So we are in the Symphony platform here, and as you saw with Uncork, we have an app that works within Symphony. You can also integrate with APIs if you if you want to integrate your own system. And as I was just saying before, different people, different ways. An onboarding team might go in through our platform. A dealing desk or portfolio manager might well go in through the Symphony platform. The risk people might use the Symphony platform. The middle office might use the Symphony platform if they're talking about trades that have failed. They might use the in-house platform in other circumstances. So what Carlos is showing us on the screen here at the moment is the ready to trade app. And if you're ready to trade, you're ready to settle, and you're ready to allocate. or ready to allocate and ready to settle is probably a better way around putting it. And we have clicked into a particular fund here. And if we look over on the right, we can see that on each fund it says not ready or ready to trade with some exceptions, or a bit further down, ready to trade full stop. And within the Royal Bank of Scotland line, we have bank loans. And within bank loans, if we click into the markets, we can see Australia, United States and Canada are ready. India and United Kingdom are not ready. Having this information available to the dealers on the dealing desk, linked directly back to the underlying brokers, the underlying custodians, is really powerful, because at the moment they resolve this either by assuming that things are open and then there's a problem and you maybe have to unwind a trade, or alternatively, they make internal phone calls, they make internal emails, they make internal Symphony messages. So having this information available live is really, really powerful stuff. We now have, Carlos has clicked on, there's a little circle within the platform that shows the SSI details. And if we click into one of those markets, please, Carlos, we can then see, in the case of Australia, we have all of the SSIs. We have them per market, per place of settlement, per product. And we can cope with multiple SSIs. So if you need to settle in more than one place, we give you that choice. And the feed that we get here, I think it's just important for people who think immediately, DTC alert, isn't that just as good? We have the same feed that they have, but we also think we have some slightly better data going on, so we have a slightly richer experience. Carlos is keen for me to catch up here and has gone on to the FX standing instructions. We also have the ability to look at the FX standing instructions for each fund. So again, we can click into an individual market. And within the market for different trade types, whether it's corporate actions, income, interest, we can see account numbers, we can see who needs to trade. And again, for an FX desk, this is really useful information to have, and it's linked to that account setup. So no longer a spreadsheet to say, oh, well, for this currency, for this thing, we trade it. It's just a much more systematic way of doing things. So we're now going to pivot from the Symphony plugin back to our platform. And just bear in mind, there's a whole load of stuff we don't have time to show you today. If you just look down that menu on the left, there's legal things, there's document things, there's client things. We're just going to focus on a few key areas to give you a flavor. We've clicked into, again, it's a fictional, well, it's a real entity looked up again through our Glyph integration, but it's a fictional set of data on the screen. You see the Microsoft Corporation plan, you see the LEI status across the top, some address details. Another interesting feature when we go halfway down is the regulatory reporting. Here we're showing US CFTC, we're showing USPR, EU EMEA, and there is nothing stopping us adding more things onto here as more regulations apply to individual clients.
More regulations like CSTR maybe in the future. Speaking of which, has that been a catalyst for you guys to sort of, get more buy and sell sides to look at using solutions like Saphyre and Symphony just to sort of avoid further settlement failures?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So, CSTR is really pushing people to settle quicker, and the penalties envisaged for not settling on time are, bigger and bigger. And everything that we're showing you today does relate to onboarding efficiency, but it also relates to if you get your pre-trade sorted out, then your static data sorted out, your client data sorted out, and you're much more likely to be able to settle without issues, which makes CSTR, a whole lot less scary. Just moving along in here, we've now scrolled further down, and we'll see there's a Documents tab. There's a Documents tab within this page about the fund opening, and there's a whole load of documents down at the bottom. Now, notice we have no folders at all. Part of what our 68 patents are about, we remember the relationship between data and documents within the platform. So there is no need to put them in particular folders. You associate them with the client, you set up permissions for who's allowed to see those things. And again, Carlos is just showing us on screen that this particular documents can be seen by Bank of America, Fidelity, Goldman, Royal Bank of Scotland. And so you set those things at once. And if you say get a new W8 Ben, if you get a new annual report, you upload the new one and it inherits the permissions of the previous version. It's a small thing, but it's actually, when you go to investment managers, when you go to banks, they have people who are busy uploading and replacing documents and re-permissioning them. And we've just tried to make that a whole lot easier and a whole lot more reliable. So while we're talking about documents, there are two things that I wanted to show you, two reports. The first is the expired documents report. This shows you 30, 60, 90 days out. How many, it gives you a list of documents that are due to expire. So, I've worked at an investment consultant, I've worked at an investment manager. I am totally used to the idea that a trade fails and suddenly a message comes out. We need to send a motorbike to Cornwall to have a trustee sign a piece of paper because we didn't think in advance that the expiry was going to fail a trade or cause a trade to fail. These things happen all the time. By being on the front foot, we can work efficiently. Client service people can work efficiently instead of in a panic. And onboarding people can work efficiently to work through the list of documents that are due to expire. We have another report, which I think is quite important, which is called the Missing and Received report, which Carlos is going to show us now. On the Missing and Received report, we clicked into a particular fund here, and we can see that we've got 3 documents that are ready, the annual report, certificate of incorporation, and certificate of registration. But we have 4, the W9, the IMA, the prospectus, and the organizational structure, which are not ready. This is a great way of seeing for a particular piece of activity what is left to collect from the client. And we build these lists dynamically depending upon what's happening. So again, it's being efficient, it's knowing exactly what you want, it's asking the client wants, and it's asking the client wants for the right information. Small thing, but a better client service. Now, I wanted to move on next to some details about fund setup. And here we're going to go into a fund shell and click the launch button. And once we click the launch button, we are going to add some products onto our fund just to show you how this is done. Carlos is selecting an ISTA, I believe, and within an ISTA, there's a whole range of products that you could select. Carlos has selected a few, and he's also going to select some cash account things. Bear in mind that at the moment, set up an account with a broker, and the process, which we're not showing you today, for setting up a custody account, similar. To set up that at the moment requires emails, it requires spreadsheets, it requires forms. We're replacing this with a two-way interactive live functionality. And Carlos is just selecting the onboarding favorites. So again, once he clicks this button, we will see that we are now in the space of 1-2 minutes, getting to the point where with 4 banks, we're just going to type a message here, we'll click launch, and with these 4 banks, we are ready to start work on doing a launch. The documents that are underlying this are ready and have been shared, and everyone can see both sides of the transaction live within the platform, monitor the progress with the platform, and because of that, everything gets a whole load quicker. Switching across to the fund progress page, which is another key thing. Information across the top of the page, as you'd expect, fund name, the sell side details, and then on the right we have 3 blue bubbles, the middle one of which is the audit log, which we are going to click on. And the audit log shows us everything that has happened with a particular piece of activity. And you have to remember with this platform, the piece of activity might be edited by the custodian, the fund manager, the broker, and this gives us a complete and clean record of who has done what. And we can see there was a blue star or green star that says action required on the page, and that shows you that there's an action required from the sell side next to get this piece of activity going along. Moving down on the page, we have 5 tabs, and we've already talked about documents. I just want to very quickly mention tasks because I'm aware of time here. On tasks, you can create tasks for yourself. You can create tasks for the broker. The broker can create tasks for you, and we can automatically create tasks. So if you're launching a UCITS fund and you have 5 tasks to do, whereas if you're launching another fund and have 8 tasks to do, we can automatically create those tasks within the tab. Next tab along, just going at full speed here, Questionnaires tab. And you seem to be a little bit paused. On the next tab along, we have the questionnaires, and here we're showing a Dodd-Frank and the segregation of margin report. We can also do customized questionnaires to collect client information. And because of our AI and because partly, again, to do our patents, we remember things. So if you filled in the Dodd-Frank for this client somewhere else, then that information will already be in here. Now, that's good because it's efficient. It's good because it cuts risk. So that's kind of just one thing left to show you today, which is just wrapping back to the overall dashboard where you can see progress. We recognize that people have a lot of onboardings to do. We dashboard it in many ways. This dashboard, we have all the functionality to customize. You'd expect columns to show you can move columns from left to right and right to left. You can assign things to individual team members. That, I think, in the interest of time, is probably the end of what I wanted to talk about today. Actually, but everything we've shown you probably amounts to 20% of the platform, and of course, is all available through Symphony.
Absolutely. Actually, and that's a great question that's posted. How do people get Saphyre? I mean, I can answer part of that. There's a button on the left, bottom left side of the Symphony 2.0 platform, which is the button for our marketplace, where you can see a lot of the bots and applications available and built by the community, where Symphony Registrate Bots is listed. But maybe, Max, you can chime in here a little bit more about how people can get on Symphony. Sorry, Saphyre.
Or both, in fact. Yeah. Well, if you're already on Symphony, which we hope people would be, then speak with your Symphony representative, relationship manager, and they will help you. And it is literally a flick of a switch to be able to access it, certainly within the Symphony app. Alternatively, if you come to us directly, it's a 3-step process. It's get some logins with cloud-based, so there's no installation, which is convenient. It's a very small amount of paperwork, a couple of hours of training, and we normally get people going. So it's actually a very quick process.
Great. I think we're almost at time, and this has been a great conversation. Thank you very much for both of you, for both companies to attend and present today. I think you both sort of talked about how we're working towards sort of removing the spreadsheets and the email exchanges, the sticky tapes around the room, and we're creating a lot more automations and efficiency in the workflow processes, particularly for client onboarding, which is a hot topic in the industry. There are lots of questions on the Q&A, which we haven't gotten to all of them, so we will get back to you individually to answer those questions. But if there are any other questions and you haven't had the chance to post them, do get in touch with your account managers at Symphony, and we'll be able to get those answers back to you. So thank you, everyone, for joining today. I look forward to seeing you all in the next Innovator Showcase. Bye for now.